Well, if you're going to sit there and tell me that crowdfunding pages don't work, my response to you is, you're full of shit. Hey guys, welcome to Happywax TV. So yeah, this movie, Code 8, I knew nothing about it. It came up on my feed today, so I rented it and I watched it and I thought, wow, that was actually pretty good. It's a low budget movie though, you know what I mean? So, I mean, it's not like a 10 or 20 or $50 million movie. It was made on less than $2 million, but it was filmed in Toronto, which I thought was really cool. And then I'll get to the cast in a little bit, but I did some research on it and I found out a bunch of shit about this movie. First of all, it was released as a short film in 2016 by the same name, Code 8. And I've said this a bazillion times, you know what I mean? If you have an idea for a movie, you know what I mean? Just get it out there because the right person might see it and it might get picked up. I mean, I can't even tell you how many movies have done this. Now, this movie's a little bit different because they went and got the money themselves and a lot of the cast from the first movie are in this one. But I mean, just go online and look at how many short films have become feature lengths, and a lot of the actors star in them. But most importantly, or not importantly, but more times than not, the director, who is usually the main driving force behind the movie, is also the writer of the short film, and he gets to direct. I mean, look at Garth Edwards. You know what I mean? Just for an example. I mean, that guy's fucking killing it now. Or Machete, who did It. You know what I mean? Like, just go and see where they've come from. And what they're doing now, it's fucking crazy. So anyways, yeah, I just want to give a little research. So this is a Canadian film, which is cool too, because yours truly is Canadian as well. And it was filmed just down the road from me in Toronto. I mean, mind you, there's a ton of movies that get filmed there. So, but yeah, this is a Canadian movie. And I read, let me just read here, because this is all kind of new to me. And you know how lazy I am and I don't like to do a lot of research. So they started their own crowdfunding on Indiegogo. And they were asking for an initial $200,000 by fans, okay? And over 28,000 people came on board and gave them money to date, okay? And they have raised over $2 million just from crowdfunding to get this movie done. And it just got released on the 13th, which is probably yesterday, because anyways, that's when I released it, or my review. But anyways, that is fucking crazy, and good for those guys because, you know, hard work pays off and trying to sell your movie. And I mean, I don't know the whole history of the short film, like what went in behind it, but I am going to tell you who directed it and stuff. So Jeff Chan is the director, and then it's the story by Jeff Chan, and one of the writers is Chris Parr. But the big names in this movie, actually, you know, in this. It's funny too, because when I watched the short film and then I watched the feature film, a lot of the stars, like I said already, in the short film or in the feature film. Most notably, Stephen Amell, who is Green Arrow on the Arrow series, and he's been in a bunch of other movies. And then his cousin, Robbie Amell, plays Connor Reed, who's kind of one of the main stars in this movie. So Garrett is kind of like the bad guy, or, you know, kind of the bad guy in this movie. And then Robbie plays Connor. He's kind of, well, I don't know, there's not really any good or bad guys in here. It's like a bank heist kind of movie, but I'll get to that in a sec too. And then the other big names are Sung Kang, who is Agent Park. And he was in the short film as well, which is really cool because you'll know his face because he's all over the Fast and the Furious franchise. He was a big star or a big character in that until he got killed off. The first act, we learn about Connor and his mom, and Connor's power is he can give electrical bursts, you know what I mean? And his mom has the ability to freeze stuff, but she has a tumor, we find out, and she's slowly dying. And he doesn't work or kind of picks up construction jobs here and there as an electrician, go figure. And then his mom works at a grocery store. So as a clerk, I guess, or whatever. But anyways, I mean, they're not overly well-paying jobs, and they can't, when they learn that she's sick and getting worse and find out that it's a tumor, I mean, we all know what the healthcare is like in the States, and they can't afford to pay for this, or you know what I mean? So that's when he comes across this, you know, this gang or these thieves and joins up with them because they can use his power on this one heist to short circuit this 20,000 watt fence or something like that. So anyways, first act is we learn his mom's sick. We kind of learn about the background history of what's going on with these people with power. You know, and it's a little hard to believe because you'd think the people that have all these powers, you know, one like the main bad guy here, you know, he can read people's minds, and then there's, you know, you've got the guy that can't get killed, and the guy that's got like super strength, and you know, Maddie, who is kind of maybe a little bit the love interest near the end. She's what they call a healer. So if you get hurt or if you have a sickness, they can, you know, heal you, but they all have their own different powers. It's like the X-Men or a bunch of other movies like that. So the story isn't overly original, okay? But just the fact on how this was made and how good it looks on the really small budget. Like this movie actually at the time when it was made for less than $2 million. And the amount of cast that are in this movie is like unbelievable considering it only worked on a budget of $2 million. And the special effects for that I thought were fucking killer. When I found out what the budget was, you know what I mean? I thought, wow, this, you know, really they're going to try and pull this off, and they did. I thought for the most part it looked fucking great. So, you know, and then the second act, we get into the second act, and you know, he just kind of gets more and more involved in this, you know, stealing stuff, and then they go for this big heist to try and get this massive score. You know what I mean? And there's this stuff, there's this drug. Every one of these movies, like Dredd had slow-mo, and I don't know, other movies have their drug of choice, right? But this one, I think it's called Sync. I think that's what they called it. But they extract the fluid from your spinal column, okay? And they turn it into this drug. And it's the big thing. So they go after this score, you know what I mean? It's like a $10 million score or something like that. And that's kind of where the second act picks up. And I don't want to say anything past that. I don't want to give spoilers for this movie because it does have a pretty cool story. I mean, I don't know, man. Like this is well done. Like I was on IMDb, and you know, it's got a 7 on there, which is what I'm going to give this movie. I think that was pretty fair. But there's some people on here ripping it, just saying, oh, the story isn't original and stuff like that. And, you know, I'm thinking, well, no, the story isn't original. I mean, the X-Men have been around forever. So, I mean, this is clearly, you know, what they base that story on is probably the X-Men before they kind of came up into, you know, superpower like they are now, right? So, but I like stories like this. It's almost like a prequel, you know what I mean? Like before they actually got going, all these people are finding out that they have these powers and they don't know what to do with them. And of course, the man wants to try and suppress them so they don't use their powers for, well, to do evil things, right? So, which is kind of what this movie is. And I mean, people are struggling. And I mean, when you struggle and you got family members dying, you'll go to any length to keep them alive. And that's what this guy does. So, like again, you know, like the superpowers, yeah, it's not like overly original. I just did a review on the movie Freaks. I mean, people could call that a ripoff of an X-Men series. You know what I mean? Like, so anytime you get people with superpowers, I mean, you can't initially or immediately go to, oh, they're just ripping off the X-Men. I mean, give me a fucking break. That would be like every slasher film, you know, took their you know, goings on, or they're the idea for the slasher film from fucking Black Christmas, which in my opinion is the first slasher film. But I mean, for the most part too, would be Halloween. So we'll just go both. You know what I mean? Like, so you can't compare movies like that. So you have to look a little bit beyond that in the story. And it's just it bugs me when I hear people talk about that shit. There's a lot of comments in the thing here on IMDb that are saying that, but take my word for it. I wouldn't lie to you guys. You know what I mean? Like, this is a Canadian movie. I love the background of this movie and how it came to be and how they worked together and got the crowd involved and the fans of the short film involved. I mean, 28,000 people donated to this that earned them like $2 million. And if you go online and check out some of the stuff, like, you know, they're giving away VIP pass tickets and like clothing and all sorts of stuff back to these people that helped them out and made this movie for them, or gave them the funding to make this movie. So that's just really great, you know what I mean? Especially nowadays, because you don't really hear a lot about it, but crowdfunding does work. I mean, well, I think if we do Let's Talk Horror again, we're gonna do an episode on that, because there's actually a ton of movies, if you actually research them, that got their money from, or their majority of their money from crowdfunding. So it does work. You just have to be diligent and put the time in and don't be fucking lazy. So, and obviously these guys worked their asses off, and people came in droves to help them out. So anyways, the movie's out now. It's called Code 8. I'm recommending it. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. It's a sci-fi movie. Didn't really know anything about it until yesterday, and I was not blown away, but I was really impressed with how good it worked and how good it looked for a budget of less than $2 million. So check it out. If you've seen it, let me know what you think. If you haven't, go rent it. It's out now, and come back and let me know what you think, guys. And until next time, stay scared.